The chapter that is One Piece chapter 957 had so many things happen, I had to make 2 videos around it. One strictly going off the hype and one to look a bit deeper to understand what the story is telling us. So today we'll go through the chapter to break it down and understand it a little bit more. So we're just going to get right into it. And with the chapter, it begins with Akainu and Fujitora. The topic is the abolishment of the warlord system that Fujitora put in motion at the end of Dressrosa. And I think this is the perfect way to begin a chapter like this due to when Fujitora initially set out on this journey, there was a conversation between Fujitora and Akainu and it went a lot differently. The Tiger and the Dog, chapter 793, was the beginning of Fujitora's plan to put the abolishment of the warlord system in motion. To understand the extent of the risk Fujitora took, you look no further than in the same chapter in which Smoker, who has shown to be an avid breaker of rules, says that he himself couldn't do what Fujitora did, which was to expose the fact that Doflamingo being in Dressrosa was a mistake. And to relate it to Smoker, he had the same opportunity in Alabasta, but this was ruined by Luffy and his crew. Smoker even said that if Luffy and his crew didn't show up, Crocodile would have the same reigns over Alabasta like Doflamingo did. This was extremely symbolic as it gave the Marines an opportunity to truly evaluate whether or not the warlords were worth the trouble. Akainu wasn't obviously pleased, but it's a bit deeper because not only did the Gorosei tell him that his faction is the outward face of the government and wasn't as important as he thought he was, now he has to deal with his subordinate directly opposing his views. Not that Akainu cares about pirates, but he understands the importance of strength and balance, which initially upon meeting Akainu he seemed brash and unrelenting if he believed in something. This shows growth in the character and further speaks to why he was chosen for the position. You can make an argument that Aokiji was better suited for the position, but I think so far Akainu is doing a good job. The point here though is really shining a light on how Akainu came around in chapter 957. Fujitora accomplished his goal and instead of being anal about it, he somewhat congratulated him because he knows it's for the greater good even though it wasn't his decision. But on the other hand, he's more so worried about the repercussions of this abolishment. No matter how you slice it, it's a gamble, and as Fleet Admiral, these major decisions will ultimately rest on your shoulders if the Marines were to be defeated. I want to point out as well, Fujitora I think misjudged Akainu as he says Akainu personally probably never suffered under a warlord. In that moment, Akainu's eyes were shaded and in One Piece it signifies anger or thought. I think this is hinting to the fact that Akainu did indeed go through a period in his life where he was subjected to the tyranny of a pirate, but maybe not specifically a warlord. There's mention of the SSG, which is the specific thing that will be used to replace the warlords. This is interesting as replacing powerful and influential pirates isn't a small feat. Fujitora believes using the SSG will tip the balance in the Marines' favor, while Akainu feels like it could tip against them. This is really interesting because the dialogue insinuates Fujitora not only believes the SSG can replace the warlords, but they could perhaps tip the balance of power more so to their favor. Does this mean Fujitora's next goal is to take out the Yonko one by one? Judging by how the story is going, I'm not sure if he's going to get the opportunity to do so based on everything that's happening in Wano, but that's something to think about. But quickly about the SSG, as it could be a wide range of different things. However, the conclusion I came to was to enhance soldiers. In One Piece so far, other scientists have accomplished things that typically pale in comparison to Vegapunk, such as Caesar's Smile Devil Fruits, which are 1 in 10 of being legitimate with the possibility of nasty side effects. Vegapunk's failed fruit turned Momo into a mini Kaido. So there's a gap in regards to brilliance, and Caesar is obviously a great scientist, but Vegapunk is obviously better. So along with being able to hone the powers of the admirals, we saw he already did it with Kizaru's Devil Fruit. I believe he'll be able to do it with Akainu's and Aokiji's as well. Enhancing regular Navy soldiers could be the new SSG. I believe Smoker offered himself as an experiment to become stronger as well, so we'll see an enhanced Smoker as part of the SSG, and he might be the most powerful member of the SSG as he might be just the only Vice Admiral to take part in the project. I could be wrong there, but I expect Smoker when he comes back to be a lot more powerful than he was. This obviously goes back to who you think will be the parallel to Luffy, but I think Smoker and Kobe are obviously the front runners, but I'm leaning towards Smoker so far. SSG in the translations that I read is translated to Special Science Group, which does make sense, but we'll know once the official version drops on Sunday. Word of the Rocks has gotten out to Akainu and Fujitora, and they were both aware of Rocks and who they were because the immediate thought was why they were showing up and not exactly who they were, which actually makes sense because these two men are in the latter stages of their career, and knowing secrets of the world government and the Marines seems apt. What's also interesting is it shows Fujitora's ship being attacked by Sea Kings. This led to the speculation that Fujitora is accompanying Kobe to apprehend Boa Hancock. This may be the case, but we can't ignore the fact that he does look a bit injured. Someone did point out, however, Garp was bandaged after Marineford even though his only injury was a punch from Luffy. Fujitora was more than likely fighting Logia Yuzusabo using a fire fruit, so him being bandaged for some possible burns actually makes sense. In the case that Fujitora or Green Bull didn't have any cuts and bruises, it would be a bad representation or a bad look for the revolutionaries. And in quite honesty, the revolutionaries, they desperately need a win, so that has to happen really soon, or my personal faith in the revolutionaries and the revolution they plan to bring about will continue to waver. We see Commodore Brand New, who is typically in charge of relaying information to the readers via mostly the bounty posters, as he did for the defeat of Arlong, and reported the Impel Down situation with Magellan after Marineford. Long story short, when Brand New is shown, it typically follows amazing information, and this chapter was more of the same. Marines currently have a report of a tentative alliance of Big Mom and Kaido. It begs the question, are they getting information via Sword, or do they already have informants outside of Sword stationed in Wano? It would be a bit weird as a kind of refused to send Kizaru there due to not knowing the situation with the samurai, etc. And if they did have informants there, they would have an idea about the reason for the revolt and the reason behind the uprising, and even Odin. The goal at this point is to update the young Marines on the Rocks Pirates, as most Marines had no idea of who they were and how they were formed. But the first intel Sengoku had on Big Mom and Kaido recently is that they had been fighting for years. And I also think it's perfect how Oda is using Sengoku in this arc. It's also reminiscent of Dressrosa when we got the moment he had with Law about Rocinante, in which he said to think that the only man whom I could share memories of Rocinante with is a pirate. This also presents an interesting ironic scenario, as in 957 Sengoku specifically says that pirates are capable of creating relationships as well. Now the major part of the chapter is the information on the Rocks Pirates, but honestly I can't say that, as this entire chapter is filled with amazing parts. Sengoku relayed the information that the Rocks Pirates consisted of Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki, and others. The thought of all these powerhouses on the same crew is absurd, but this was 38 years ago, so they weren't as strong as they are now, but still we've seen Big Mom as a child, and she was already a monster. The others I was talking about that Sengoku mentioned was Captain John, Silver Axe, and Ochoku. Captain John is dead from what we know because he was on Thriller Bark, and Buggy was actually chasing after his treasure. The treasure could be a key piece which leads to the final poneglyph as well, and if Rocks the Pirate was as formidable as we think, I'm sure he would know the location of at least a few poneglyphs. In regards to the other two, I expect them to be prominent in the future before One Piece ends. It was also mentioned that the members couldn't stand each other, and this is obviously due to the fact that there were at least 3 conquerors on one ship. This also gives context to why Kaido did not want too many of them on his crew. He understands more than most that having too many could lead to the demise of an entire crew, even as powerful as the Rocks Pirates. Rocks, who was the leader of this group of conquerors, actually wanted to become king of the world as opposed to king of the pirates. Then again, the whole system back then was completely different, so Yonko, etc. did not exist yet, but regardless, he had his sights set higher. Sengoku called them a terrorist group as they bared their fangs at the world government, similarly to how Dragon does now. The specific incident that brought the crew to an end was labeled the God Valley Incident. Apparently, they were taken down by Vice Admiral Garp, and that's where Garp got his epithet, as we learn in chapter 907. So this event in particular, Garp doesn't like to talk about due to the fact that he teamed up with Roger, who was a pirate, to make it happen. Initially, I was annoyed because it felt like Garp didn't care about the initial report of Big Mom and Kaido coming in contact with each other, and this was in chapter 907, but after rereading, Garp says there's no point in worrying. If they return, there'll be a threat, but events find a way to surpass our imagination anyway. This reverberates a bit more, not only due to Sengoku's interaction with Law and his speech at the end instilling the nature of pirates in the young Marines, but it tells a deeper story. As resentful as Garp is of pirates, the only person that he is capable of sharing this memory with is Roger, who is now dead. Roger mentioned to Garp that he trusted him as one of his own crewmates, and as we get more context in regards to their relationship, it actually makes more sense. When Roger died, I believe Garp not only lost someone who he could relate to on several levels outside of being a pirate, he lost a friendship that had grown over decades in an unexpected way. To me, Garp doesn't like speaking of that specific incident due to the feelings it brings about with Roger, as well as deeper events that transpired regarding the celestial dragons. I'm sure Garp feels that if Roger wasn't a pirate, they could truly be good friends. What I mean is, they said that Garp and Roger encountered each other, then teamed up to protect the celestial dragons and their slaves. We know Garp hates celestial dragons, and morally, I doubt he would accept slavery in Roger if we're to judge Rayleigh, who saved a former slave in Boa Hancock, by character and assume he would only follow someone of high character. Why would they do this? One thought is that maybe there was vested interest in the slaves. Also, at the end of the day, the slaves were actual people, and Garp and Roger seemed to care about people. We know how Roger became a demon for his crewmates. What's also interesting is that the rocks formed at Pirate's Beehive and ended at God's Valley. Pirate's Beehive is where Blackbeard currently occupies, and God's Valley, Sengoku said it disappeared. God's Valley was more than likely a place owned and occupied by the celestial dragons, and for rocks, the first act of the Clearing War was to completely massacre them and their slaves. And due to this event, not only did Whitebeard lose interest in this battle, it speaks to how a crew with powerhouses but little chemistry could be defeated by Garp and Roger. Now, this isn't to discount Garp and Roger, as they're trending towards the two strongest characters of all time, but overcoming someone who is on par with Roger in Whitebeard and Rocks, along with a younger Big Mom and Kaido, seems insane. We also can't leave Shiki out either. We really need more context to come to a fitting conclusion, but at the end of the day, Garp is officially a monster. We already knew that, but this is further confirmation. As I stated before, Sengoku said that God's Valley disappeared without a trace after the battle, which could mean the sheer power that had accumulated on the island sunk it. Or did Shiki and his devil fruit powers have something to do with it? God's Valley, in my opinion, will play an important role in finding Laugh-Tale. Now to Rocks, I think he's a very interesting and polarizing character, as he should be heralded as Whitebeard and Roger is, if not more so, as he managed to somewhat tame, if only for a short while, 4 Yonko level characters. Maybe they weren't that strong at the time, but they developed into that. This guy, if he's not dead as Sengoku says, should become a personal trainer or something, because I'm officially sold. The bounties of the Yonko were also revealed, and it made sense in regards to what it represents. Blackbeard has the lowest and Kaido has the highest. Blackbeard, of course, is the newest Yonko, and Kaido, from what we know, is the most aggressive. Shanks is currently the youngest of the Yonko and has only been one for 6 years. So at Marineford, it was around 4 years. It makes sense as bounties are based on threat level, but for Shanks, what was the event that occurred for him to be regarded as a Yonko? Did he snitch again, or a truly cataclysmic event in which Shanks came out on top happen? Shanks' crew was the only one mentioned, as it stated he has a well-balanced and impregnable crew, which tells us about the people following Shanks. Ben, Rue, and Yasop were pointed out individually, so right there, I believe top to bottom he has the best commanders, which speaks to why he was so confident at Marineford. Personally, I think if he wasn't as confident, he would have recommended a Davy back fight. The reveal of Rogers and Whitebeard's bounties wasn't really needed here, but I absolutely loved the fact that Oda decided to show us the bounties of these legends. Now, Luffy's future bounty probably will surpass Roger, and the speculation right now is that it will be 5.6 bill as a call to his devil fruit and how it's pronounced in Japan. The chapter comes to its conclusion with Sengoku and Akainu having very important dialogue about Wano. Akainu walks in upon them mentioning Big Mom and Kaido being in Wano and doesn't want to interfere, and this is when Sengoku speaks of passing his knowledge on to the new generation, and his comment about developing relationships with pirates if the motive is there. This implies that at one point a Sengoku and Law relationship strictly for the sake of Corazon might bloom. It's weird because at first when Akainu shows up, Sengoku specifically states that he doesn't want to interfere, but then at the end he mentions not only Odin, but the convenience that all the big shots are meeting up specifically in Wano, what is actually going on. This implies that while they don't want to invade and do anything with Wano, they probably should due to the big shots gathering there, and the use of Sengoku in this role is perfect, as he again was a fleet admiral before Akainu, and he has more knowledge, we would assume, and this I believe has brought them closer together, because Akainu is now doing the job and understanding everything Sengoku went through. There's speculation that Blackbeard possibly inherited Rox's will, but I plan on making a video about that. But this chapter was amazing, and I hope we don't go back to Wano yet and get some more reactions in regards to the Reverie outcome, and hopefully there's a reveal of SSG before we actually go back as well. But guys, let me know your thoughts on the chapter. What did you feel? How do you currently feel after an entire day? Do you regard this chapter as one of the best ever? I mean, obviously, but do you regard this chapter as the best ever? What were your favorite parts? What did you dislike, if anything? Please leave your thoughts below, like the video if you did, subscribe for more content like this, follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce, follow me on Instagram at BragoD.Ace. Shout out to my patrons, I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.